and then my first experiences in the paranormal, and then go into why we use what we use. First and foremost, was never a ghoul person, or, I don't wear a black shirt and have to sit with nifty 3 initials on me to claim myself as a ghost hunter or whatever, paranormal investigator. My background is always was in construction and into construction sales, and now I own a dog boutique. So there's nothing about me that would steer me in this direction. When I was in college years, I studied special effects makeup. At that time, after it was over, years later, Ghost Hunters came out, and it was the episode, I believe, where they were at the Cashtown Inn, where the picture turned and Grant said this and that. And I said to my brother, you can do that with fishing string. Bram Stoker's Dracula, they actually used old school effects. And I said, I can move something with a piece of fishing string and you would never know it. At that time, he worked for a major pharmaceutical company, and he would go out to different areas. He had basically a tri-state area that he would cover, and part of that area was Gettysburg. He went out there for a convention, and he went on the typical ghost tours, and he took pictures of these, whether they were dew points or we thought at that time were orbs, different things, smoky little things. And he said, he showed them to me on Christmas Eve, and he goes, you should come out with me, because I know you watch a little bit of that Ghost Hunters. You should come out with me, and you're always saying that they could do this, they could do that, because I'm telling you, I smell gunpowder and stuff. And I went, okay. So April, he had to do his second. He had to go back out there again to one of the facilities out there, and he said, why don't you come join me? And I did. And I got to be honest with you, Gettysburg is beautiful. I had a lot of fun. I went on the battlefield, but nothing happened. And I was like, John, there's nothing here. We went back again in, I think it was June or early July, right before the anniversary of the battle. And at that time, his niece came with me, Sarah. It was myself and her ex-boyfriend, Chris. She's now married to a different person. So it was about, and this was about like 2009, maybe. We went out there, typical same thing. We go on the Devil's Den, we look around, we take some pictures. There's these white spots, and I'm like, okay, it could be dew, it could be bugs, and maybe it is a ghost. And we're driving around. We went to the cornfields, everywhere, the bridge, everything. So we're driving around. It's about 9:30 at night, and it's totally dark in there. And the park was open until 10 at that time. So we're driving around, and they have different monuments. If you've ever been in Gettysburg, they'll have these little mountains or monuments, and they'll say the 7th Infantry from Virginia, or this cavalry from Maine. It'll tell you who were there for the battle and what part of the battlefield they were on and what they were doing, whether on horse, whether they were just marching. So we went up to this one, and it was a cavalry, and we read the thing. And if you're at the monument, we're up on a little hill. The car was parked just down the hill on the road, off to a little bit. So we get up there. My brother goes, I'm going down this way. And it was to the right. And I said, great, I'm going to go this way, because it was literally a horse trail. I said, I'll walk the horse trail. And my niece and her boyfriend just stayed near the car. They didn't want to, they were tired. So I'm walking, and all this, I get down, I'm down in the trail. I'm in a little bit of a wooded area. So, of course, you're a little heightened. And as I'm walking, I hear crunching, and I'm saying, it's got to be a chipmunk or something. I hear something in the leaves. So then all of a sudden I hear very light in my left ear. It was close, but it sounded far away. I hear, hey, just a typical, hey. And I said, I think I just heard somebody say, hey to me, but in a soft whispery voice, but they were right behind me. I turned around. I was shocked from what I heard. I stood there. I didn't know what to do. I'm looking around, waiting to see something. I looked down. It was a dirt path. I marked it with my shoe, scuffed it, and I started calling for my niece. I was literally yelling. And at that time, I bought a piece of equipment to go, and it was this. It was a milligauss meter. At the time, this was like the cheapest device. I think it was $9. And at that time, I wasn't a paranormal investigator. So we just, for experiments and stuff, we said, let's buy one of these. They had them on sale in Gettysburg. Let's buy one of these. Well, I told her, I said, grab that meter. She did. I told her what happened. So her and her boyfriend walked down, and they said, there it is. There's a spot. And I'm telling them just what I told you, what I heard. And they said, okay, so she had this on. And this, the milligauss meter, what it does is everything measures EMF fields. But what this does is it'll actually click and make a slight sound. If something gets closer to you, it'll do that. I can also do it by holding my thumb on it right now as a test. So we go down there. I tell Sarah and Chris what happened. And they go, wow. And I'm like, I'm not kidding, you know, because I never had anything like this happen in my life. And we turned and we're asking questions, nothing. My niece is holding this and she's literally holding it by the back end and we hear this clicking. And she said, were you just near my uncle? Could you come near us? The thing pings and makes the loud sound. I automatically go and go, is your thumb on the tester? Because that's what's made. She goes, no, my hand's back here. So she asks again, the same thing happens again. And then she says, can you step back? And it stops. She asks again, could you do this? Same thing, it goes off, then it stops. We said, Chris, her boyfriend at that time, says, can you make any other sounds? We heard what sounded like a bang on a tree. At that point, we all just left. We went up to the top. We told my brother we were so excited. He came running up. He went where nothing happened when he went down there. We got in the car. It was my first ghost experience, for me anyway. The big thing you got to realize is when I don't care if you want to talk about UFOs or anything. I will tell you this much. Anybody who experiences a paranormal experience, a ghost or any type, it's life-changing. I knew that when I came home to my wife at the time that she wouldn't believe me. You know, she would say a ghost, but I knew what I heard. And at that point, that's what struck me. I wanted to get an answer to what did I hear? I know in my head, I heard a disembodied voice. I heard it, but it was faint that I'm like, you know, when you get home, you're running it back through your head saying, did I imagine this? Because I didn't have recorders or anything. So I looked in Paranormal, and at that time, the only guy that was around, and this was way before like Ghost Hunters that maybe had 3 episodes on at that point. Dave Giuliano was the renowned demonologist and known paranormal investigator in the tri-state area, New Jersey, New York, even parts of Philly and Pennsylvania. And he was taught by John Zaffis, who is the nephew of the Warners, who you know from Amityville Horror and all that. So I reached out to him and I told him what I experienced. And I said, I'd like to learn more about this. And his comment to me was via email was, last thing I need is another newbie getting involved in this field that doesn't know anything and making a mess of stuff. And I sent an email back. Basically, I was a little miffed and I said, you know, I'm not looking to do anything. I'm just looking for you to explain it. So he told me, he said, well, read some books and understand what you're dealing with, why you're using the meter. And I'll tell you a little bit more about my experiences. Now, Dave's experience is strictly more from a demonologist standpoint. I am more of what you call a paranormal investigator. There's no difference. Dave does both. The difference for me is I don't have the religious background. I was raised Roman Catholic, but demonology to me is a definite religious experience. You know, whether Judaism has it, the Muslims have the jinn, but demonology, the actual term demonology, is very much a Roman Catholic thing. So when someone says, I know there's a demon in my house, I say, so then you're Catholic. And if they go, no, I'm not, I say, so what makes you think it's a demon? Because that's good versus evil, the devil versus God, you know, and the demons, the disciples. So I always try to clear up. So what I started reading was about basic physics, which I found boring in high school and in junior high. So I'm like, I'm back to this. And basically what it all stemmed off of was Einstein's theory that everything is energy, that when you break energy down to its smallest molecules, its particles of energy, neutron, protons, and electrons. Everything you see around you, from the computer I'm on, the chair I'm sitting on, to me, and to other things in the room, are energy going at different vibrations. The more dense it is, the slower the vibration. That's what builds up its density. Wood, something light like a feather obviously has a lighter vibration. Einstein, through his theory said energy cannot be created nor destroyed. And he also believed that if we could ever get the technology, almost like a radio, when you hear a bleed through from another station when you're driving through states, that if we could dial in the right frequency, that what I told you 5 minutes ago still exists because it's energy. But I can't, because I'm a physical human being, I can only go forward like a slideshow. I can't hit the reverse button. So, but he felt you could, and in his theory, that was if you introduced motion, speed of light, that you literally would be able to detach space and time and look at it. And if you turn to the right, it would be 20 years in your future. Turn to the left, it might be 20 years in your past. And you can actually select those times. He also said this isn't a religious experience. This is physics. So all ghost hunters, or the people that claim that they're using a scientific method, is basically we all believe that everything is energy. That sure, our physical being will decompose and rot away. And a lot of people, a lot of scientists will say, well, that's what the transfer of energy is, can't be created nor destroyed. You decompose, then the worm has you, you turn into grass, gases go into the air, become oxygen. And I understand that. The question for all of us is what we're asking is what is the soul? What is your spirit? We all know how the brain works. It works like a circuit board. The brain, if you look at the central nervous system, it looks like if you look at a transistor inside of a radio, all those little squiggly lines where they put transistors. It's processing our thoughts, carrying them out to electric impulses that make our nerves, our hands move, and we move through this physical world. We are an organic battery. We have a lifespan. If we're lucky, some of us will make it to 100 years, some don't. But the question is what is our consciousness? What gives us thought? Why do we love people? Why do we regret things we do? What makes us not do certain things? Is that the soul? And if it is, does it die with the body? And back in the 1700s, they were actually trying to measure the soul. Doctors were literally trying to see if they could measure it, to quantify it somehow. What people that investigate the paranormal believe is that you would be a form of energy. If I follow Einstein's theory, you would become a light energy, something can move very fast, because all energy is a form of light in one way or another. So I would imagine you're a high frequency or whatever, just an energy. And what you're trying to do at that point, you have that Einstein where you can go through different parts of your life or whatever. You know, maybe you loved your high school, not me personally, but maybe someone did, or they met their wife there. So you could go back in those times, but you wouldn't be present that you're in the present now. To you, in your mind, you're back to where you were. However, you can manipulate or make sounds in that environment and interact. It's sort of like you're detached but attached. So the physics is that everything's energy, everything's broken down. And once you get past the cell, the molecule, it's neuron, protons, and electrons. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. We believe that the soul or your conscience is an energy of some type, that energy exists in your body, but your body carries out through electric impulses your commands. But your soul is something, whether it's an intelligent entity, no one knows. But we believe that it's a consciousness, and that consciousness has to be a form of energy. And if it does, it has to have some type of frequency. Can I tell you it comes in at 5 megahertz? No. Any scientist will tell you what the equipment he's using, he doesn't know. If it ghosts could be on another circuit, they're using stuff that was meant for other things. And they're right. I mean, the K2 meter, which you probably see on Ghost Hunters 1,000 times, let me see if I can get this closer to you, is is another milligauss meter that was really made for a hand device in the 70s to see about clusters of cancer from power lines. So an engineer or somebody would go out, they would see like the green is an ambient. In other words, it's measured the EMF field in my house. It's saying, okay, it's safe. If I go near a plug or anything, it might light up to a red or a yellow. So our belief is, as paranormal investigators, is, well, if the spirit's an energy, and you look at the 4 states of matter, that everything is created that way. It's like we said, vibrations. So what is a low vibration? A feather would be a lighter one. Again, that if you are a spirit and you were trying to communicate with somebody or in an environment, you would have to slow your vibration to try to create matter. One is, you look at the 4 things, 4 different states of matter. The last one is a solid. We know what that is because the easiest way for us to see it is when you heat up a pot of water, you melt ice. If you take the water, you put it in the refrigerator, it goes below 32, it becomes solid matter. If you take it out and it goes above 32, it becomes liquid matter. So all matter starts like that. It might be a little mist, first free floating ions grabbing on, then becomes like a misty type thing. So that's what we believe orbs are. And we also believe, at least I believe, is that when people talk about, the lady in the white dress, the ghost in the white dress, it's, well, you're probably really seeing just a mass of energy that looks white. And your mind's eye says, woman in a white dress. Because that seems like the genetic thing. And I always say, well, why isn't it a woman in a red dress or anything? But I just think it's that free flowing glow. So with the thing I said about everything's energy, what we believe is, if you are energy, and we live in an energy environment, there is a baseline EMF field. Most of the other stuff, plugs and everything, are introduced. Your wall sockets go at 60 cycles a click. 120, the same thing, as alternate 60 cycles a click. So you go near a wall socket or something, you'll see a steady light. What I am looking for is there an intelligent energy? So if I go into a place and I'm trying to document it, I'm not here to rubber stamp somebody that says, oh, I have a ghost in my house. I go, great, let me see. If you tell me your house is haunted, I am trying to get a feel for the physical environment. And then what I'm also trying to do is get a feel for the energy environment. And I'm trying to document what you think you've had happen to you. So one thing I say, okay, if it is an energy, it should be able to intellectually or intelligently communicate with me. So I might hold the K2 meter. And usually what I do with K2 meters is, instead of holding them like this, like you'll see on some of the YouTube shows, and they'll go, can you talk to me? This device won't hurt you in any way. Well, let's be honest. If you were born in the 1700s, this looks very strange. I look very strange. So what I will do is make it more about interaction. I'll put the K2 meter on a chair and say, could you sit next to me? And what I am looking for is an intelligent response to where that energy would fluctuate, and I would be able to see it. And then I could say, like I experienced in Gettysburg, is, can you get back off the chair? Put the K2 near a meter. What I am trying to do is document what you experience. So I could say to you, you know what, Mrs. Smith, you told me near the window you get a creepy, eerie feeling. I got to tell you, in my case study here so far, I noticed that the EMF field has spiked a few times, and it seems like it's answering questions, but it also, the onus is on me. Is there a power line, on a wiring under the floor? Is there wiring in the wall that would cause that? Is there a router that will fluctuate? Sorry about this. And so that's where a paranormal investigator, where I come in as a paranormal investigator. I'm not here to rubber stamp anybody saying they have a ghost. What I am here to do is look at everything, try to find a logical explanation first. If I can't find one, I say, well, it's not normal, before I'll ever say it's paranormal. But I'm looking in. If a person says, I think I have a ghost, I'm doing part of that. Some of the other devices you've seen on TV is the Rem Pod. The Rem Pod just simply, it's really a junior therminium circuit inside this, which is, remember the old things in the 50s where you put your hand in and we go, woo, and that's what it is. This one emits an EMF field, and what it does, the theory behind it is that there's a spirit there that's trying to get energy. It will grab onto this energy, and the Rem Pod, I'll put it on for you real quick. And as it goes near the antenna, it'll disturb the frequency and it'll go off. So if you can't measure enough energy to make the K2, I also would put this out and say, okay, I put the Rem Pods down. And you saw these mostly on ghost hunters. So what I'm trying to do is document, but at the same time, I'm trying to explain everything. So when someone says to me they have a ghost in their house, I need to first look at all logical explanations. When I take on a case, normally I have like 50 questions from, are you suffering from depression? Is there a mental illness in your family? Did you lose someone recently? Did you lose a pet recently? Did you just move in the house? Have you thought you saw stuff all your life? Different things to get a compilation of you, of what you are. And most real paranormal cases aren't done like ghost hunters in the TV shows. There is no way you're ever going to solve a haunted house or even identify one in one night. It's a snapshot. My cases, when we take them on as a team, it's 4 or 5 visits. It might be over a year, might be over 3 months, it might be over 2 months, depending. So what we do with those devices is we're trying to figure out and find a way. Now, where the rubber meets the highway is a scientist will say to you, well, they don't know if spirits or energy. That's true. I don't know. I'm practicing a theory. The scientific method is I just come up with a theory. I set a couple of experiments to say, let me see if my theory is true. And then I put a protocol in list. For scientists, it would be, you can't put a house in a laboratory. So therefore, there's too many variables. I agree with that. But I also know that I've been in places where I've had an experience where the devices go off, which lends me to believe in what I'm following. So I don't have proof positive, like I can't produce a ghost for you right now and say, here you go. A lot of the stuff, I actually disprove some of it because that's what you're supposed to do first. So I showed you the K2 meter and I showed you the Rem Pod. And those are two of the basics. I showed you the milligauss meter. Another one is this is the tri-field meter. And what the tri-field meter does, like the K2, is it'll give me the electromagnetic. It'll also give me the sum of, but I also can go just to magnetic fields, or I can go to electromagnetic. More important, I can go to radio frequencies. I was on a case to where we thought something was going on upstairs, and it was an older house. It was a historic landmark. And I'm like, oh my God, we got, because devices kept going off randomly. And we were like, all the power was off in the place. It turned out when we put this on, it was a radio frequency. There was a police officer sitting in a car that we weren't unaware of in the parking lot to watch us while we were here, to make sure that no one came in, that we weren't doing anything wrong. So you learn, but not only do you learn, that's the way you disprove. So when I put this on in the house, and I could say to you or anybody, listen, I put it on, this went off. It answered, seemed like it was answering questions. It was sitting down when I wanted to, it got back up. I put this on, the sum of EMF and electromagnetic and electric field were going off. I put it on radio frequency, nothing was happening. So that tells you that it's not a router, not your cell phone. When we use our cell phones, they all go on airplane mode. And it gives me, so I can document it that way. I would say to you, listen, this is what, I can't explain this. The K2 went off. It seemed like it was an intelligent response. I checked with the tri-field meter. The radio frequency wasn't working. Another thing about the K2 meter, you'll see people hold it. These are what they call single access meters, which just means basically it's a straight line, roughly about 6 foot in front of you. It can't pick up anything to the far right or the far left, anywhere in between. The good thing to do is what we teach people is that if you think you have something standing in front of you, try to get an outline. Actually go around it. Go up, see what the height is, if there is height. More information is always better. Another device I have is this device. Actually, you hook to a cable. And Bob Christopher is the designer of this. And then you hook it to something metal like this. I use this pan. And I put personal belongings on it. What it does is it emits an EMF field into a piece of metal. If I put jewelry on it or anything like that, I see if someone can actually communicate with me can you see your mother's rosary? Can you touch it? But so much of it is not, again, what you think. It's not. Most paranormal investigations are very long and very boring. You don't walk into a house and like, oh my God, it's happening. Look. It takes time. Sometimes nothing happens, and you have to say to the person, nothing happened. Other times you go 5 times and you might experience something once. Then you have to make sure that that's something paranormal. So you have to come back more times to see if it happens again. Was it a one and done deal? Because if I can explain it or I have a question about it, you got to throw it out. I need to be able to say, where people couldn't refute this, not here's a ghost, here's something that's not normal. My belief is what she's experiencing, I've been able to document. My theory is that spirits are energy, and there have been fluctuations in that energy. Then I can help people also how to deal with these things. What you see on TV, I hate to say it, we're in the age when I grew up, there was, and a friend of mine, Nancy, has a group that's called Casper. And it's the truth. Casper, when I was growing up, Casper was the friendly ghost. The Exorcist came out, and now everybody, I get emails galore. People, it's demons. It's malevolent. It's not a friendly ghost. Most spirits would either be, from what my experience is, it's about unresolved issues. If you live on an older home, the original owner, because back then we didn't flip houses. We didn't take equity out of the house. We didn't sell the house to buy a bigger house once the value went up. People bought their homes with the intention that their kids were going to live in it. It was the family home. So is that original person still there? Is the spirit of this is mine still there? Lost loved ones, people that didn't communicate to each other, like, I really did love you, and time goes by, and all of a sudden they can't do it, and one person dies. Unfinished business. That's what I've seen more as a paranormal investigator, is stuff like that. Typically, when anybody loses a loved one, I will tell them, we won't see you. What I want you to do is go see a bereavement counselor, go to your priest or whoever you confide in, whoever gives you spiritual hope and power. Talk to them. You don't want me coming in. I will never say to you, your grandmother, your mother, your father, your sister, your brother can talk to you through this. I'm not a psychic. I don't do stuff. But what I'm trying to do is document what I believe is the theory. So what I can tell you is that I've been on cases to where, and I'll tell you one example. I had a case that the person called us in, and it was a ranch house, and it was a long ranch, and they said, my house was haunted. And I was like, okay. They lived in my hometown. And I'm like, most of these houses right in this area were built in the 80s. So there's not like, I get some people now that go, well, you don't know, it was an Indian burial ground. I don't think so. Dinosaur ghost, maybe. But I went in their house and we're investigating, and they had a little baby and a husband and wife. And she's like, we're afraid for the baby. We're afraid for that. And I said, well, what is it that you hear? What is it that goes on? And they said, well, we hear people walking around in our house at night. And we come out, we don't see anybody. And then the baby cries, sometimes for no reason. Well, babies, they were new parents. My son was older. I know babies cry for no reason, especially at night when you put them down. So I said, okay, we're investigating. We also use recorders to try to catch EVPs, and I'll go into that in a minute. And I'm investigating, nothing. I don't hear anything. I didn't say to them, look, there's no ghost here. I came back 3 or 4 times. Finally, one night I'm sitting there and I'm on their couch, and they have the big family room, and there's a long hallway to the right. There's a bathroom. Then there's the master bedroom, the kids' room, and I think it was a laundry room. So, but typical ranch. It was big. There was a room here. There was an official living room. They built a sunroom that had French doors on the side, and the kitchen was an open kitchen right over here. And right near the sunroom was also the dining room. And then there's this long hall One part went up to the garage and their bedrooms and stuff. So I'm sitting there, and it was a cold night, and all of a sudden, I hear what sounds like someone walking. I hear like creaking of the floor, and I'm like, wow, that sounds like steps. So I'm sitting and I'm waiting, and I wrote it down on a piece of paper, and it does it again. Then I'm listening, and I notice that the heat goes on when this happens, because they could hear the ear vent with the heat, and I could feel it. So then I got the husband, his name was Jerry. I said, Jerry, I think it's your laminate floor expanding and contracting. I said, did a professional put this floor in? He goes, no, I did. So I said, can you take off either tonight or tomorrow? Can we come back and take off a piece of shoestring molding? He said, sure, because I was in construction for years. The next day I go back, it turns out that you're supposed to leave, I think it's an eighth of an inch or a quarter of an inch gap around all your walls and everything, so the floor can expand and contract. And that's why you put that shoestring molding over it to cover up that gap, but it still can move underneath your trim work. And he didn't. He left it tight. So every time the heat would come, the floor would expand, the floor would go up, the heat went off, the floor would go back down, make a creaking sound of footsteps. So there was no ghost. It was his handiwork on the laminated floor. Now, I understand that he had conviction that, no, there's something here. And I'm like, this is the only sound you have. I still came back twice and investigated, just because I got to put people's mind at ease. The same thing when I ask people the questions like I talked about earlier with, are they on antidepressants? All these things. The worst thing I could ever do is get somebody to email me that has other problems. That's either grieving or does have a mental issue, depression, whatever. And they say to me, oh no, I hear these voices in my head. I feel so depressed all the time. And I go, I think it's a ghost. Even if I went in, if I was not credible, and I said, you know what? I'm going to bring a psychic in. We're going to do some I don't use psychics, but I've seen this happen to where I'm going to use some holy water or some sage, and you're going to be right. And the person goes, it didn't work. A month later, it's because they have other issues. They need a psychiatrist. They don't need me. And that's part of helping people, is just saying, I don't think you have anything there, and handling it in a delicate way, because we do get the fringe element. I get people that will tell me that, they were in a shower and I got the 3 scratches on my back. I'm like, okay, well, how do you know the shower wasn't hot and they're just hives? They'll show me a picture. Well, for me, a snapshot, I don't know if you did it to yourself, your friend did it to you, so I can't tell anything by a picture. And that happens more than you think. And what I do notice is with the emails, if there's a TV show on, like now I think it's Evil, the new one. It used to be, there was an Exorcist TV show on Fox. Whatever they showed, I could tell you 2 weeks later, I was getting emails with similar things. I even had a case where a lady goes, what does it mean when crows are outside your house? Like, crows are outside your house? And she goes, no, there's something more to it. Well, then I realized that was in the first Conjuring movie. So that's where she got that. Even if she wasn't logically telling me, her subconscious was saying, oh, crows are on the front of your house. And that's what I do need to explain. Not everything's paranormal. If I can, debunk's a bad word, if I can logically explain a lot of it. So then I say to you, you know what, I don't have an explanation for this. I think it's a ghost. Then I have to teach you what to do and how to handle it. Another one of the devices you'll see out there is with the EVP sections. The thing believed about EVPs and recorders in general is our thought process is an electromagnetic wave. When I'm talking, that's a physical process. I'm pushing air. That's my vocal cords. So our first is we're thinking about it. It's on a different frequency. Does a digital processor in recorders pick up that frequency, and is that what becomes an EVP? Because we can't, most of the time I've heard EVPs, you can't hear them. I've heard 2 in my entire life in 15 years where I heard it and it was caught on a recorder. But other than that, I've heard names, and I'm not talking about like what you hear on TV shows with that, and they go, it clearly said, Mary said this. I need a clear word. I don't need because I could rub my finger against the microphone, and I've done this in demonstrations. And through the power of suggestion, I'll say, what do you think that said? And I'll go, it said, to me, it sounded like Mary's here. And then all of a sudden they hear it and they go, it does say Mary's here. This is the power of suggestion. That's why all the shows, when you hear this on it and you're like, I don't hear anything, they put the words for you. The subliminal suggestion. This is what I heard. And you go, oh, yes, I did hear it. For me, though, if I'm investigating your house and I tell you your house is haunted, it's a dramatic experience for you. Most people feel like they're either going crazy, they feel violated, that there's something in there that's invading their space. So I have to say, listen, it's what they call Class A EVP. In other words, I have a clear, recognizable voice, and it said this. And here are the circumstances I got that reaction. When I could put between K2 meters and that personal experiences together, then I might say to somebody, you know what, I think there's a ghost here or a spirit here. Then I have to show them how to take care of it. There is no magic to it. It's about your positive energy, the same as when you go into the schoolyard as a kid. People would say, stand up to the bully. There's something spiritually suppressing you. Remember, it doesn't have physical domain. It can't really do that much to you. You don't hear about people dying on the news from a ghost. So it's about, enforcing your own will, claiming your own space. And I help people with that. I've been in the most haunted places you can think of, from Penhurst, anything in the tri-state area, the Van Wickle house, that people were like, oh my God, you shouldn't go in there. You better say blessings. Nothing's ever happened to me. I've been in quiet places where things have happened to me. And that's really what the paranormal does. Some of the things other than that I look into is, you'll see in devices, this is a shadow detector. So you'll see the laser light, and we set these up in a grid pattern. We do also do bigger laser lights, and we'll introduce smoke. And what that is again, 4 states of matter. If a spirit's slowing down and it's actually being able to take a shape, it will break that barrier and the shadow meter would go off, or I would see it. When I introduce smoke with a cross grid laser, I would actually see in dimension where that shadow figure is, not just against the wall. Is it in the middle of the room? I've experienced one shadow figure, but it wasn't like that. I was at a place. We actually investigated a cemetery years ago, and the caretaker said, I think the place is haunted, their garage. And we were sitting there, and they had a little coal, the wood fire burning stuff, this little metal thing. And they had that on for this, and they were outside. And we're sitting there in the dark, and they had those garage windows, those little small, almost like basement windows. They had those, and they were up high, so no one could ever break in and get the equipment. And literally looking out, I see the moonbeam casting a shadow on the wall. And my brother at the time was investigating with me, and he said, Barry, I just saw a shadow. It keeps popping like a head, and it blocks out the window, then it goes away. I said, I went outside to see if there was trees or something, leaves blowing it. And the thing was high up, and the nearest tree was like 20 foot away. So we went back in, and we're sitting there, we're staring. And sure enough, then I see it too. And that was the closest I came to seeing a shadow figure. Something was doing it. The window was probably 8 foot in the air. So it wasn't, they didn't want it so someone could climb through it or even get to it, because there was all the cemetery, their tractors, backhoe blades, and everything else. And one of the stories they told us was the caretaker said they have a metal, like cookie cutter, that has handles on it. And when they're cutting the sod, they put that in it and they bang it down. That cuts the grass, they roll it up, then they get the backhoe out to dig the grave. And he said to me, we put that thing on the side one day. And he said, it started wobbling, almost like when you hear a saw when you shake it. He goes, and there was no one there. And it freaked him out and a couple of other guys. And that's what led us to the investigation. So I saw the shadow. Can I say there's ghosts there? I can tell you that there's something paranormal at that place, because I caught EVPs. I had that experience. That's a personal experience. I had a K2 meter, like I told you, and it went off in the middle of the woods in the cemetery. And when I went, I literally could outline a figure of a person. So you don't have to believe me, but it happened. And I showed them exactly where it was. And we do use nighttime recorders. Now everything's GoPro. But years ago, it used to be, the handheld cameras. Sony used to make the best night shot, and I would build my own IR lights. So now I'm going to go to, we're getting a little bit out of time. So one of the things I try to do is logically explain, not debunk, just logically explain stuff. So one of the big things I got into, because John Zaffis and others, was the whole Annabelle thing. And I knew early on, it was from David, that it was a Raggedy Ann doll. It was never this thing that you see in the movies. And that, I think it was 72, the 3 nurses got the doll. They claimed it was moving around at night. Their mother, I think, bought it for them. And they were just 3 student nurses that lived in an apartment together. So when you read about demonology and the original course about demons, the first thing is that Christ cast the demons and they jump into the body of pigs and then go into a river. The pigs drown themselves. Never about inanimate objects. Just wasn't. And why would a demon want to go into a doll? So what I did was I was curious. So I was researching stuff. And I remember, I'm 61 now, going to be 62. I remember the Twilight Zone. And I remember in an episode, Talking Tina. And it was about a doll that was possessed, that was Talking Tina. It was actually a Mattel doll that was made in the 60s. So what I started discussing with people, and other people came to the conclusion, was maybe at that time, these girls were 6, 7 years old, saw the episode, had it always in the back of their head. And then when they got the Raggedy Ann doll, maybe it fell off a chair one night. Maybe one of the other roommates were goofing around and moving it and never told them. Who knows? We weren't there. They had that in their mind that the doll could be haunted. So then Raggedy Ann was haunted. The Warners got involved, and that's how the Annabelle story took off. Reality is that all those movies you see are based on her view. She claimed to be a psychic. What you see in the movies isn't factually happening. It's interpreted of what she saw happening. You know, Annabelle wasn't in any apartments anywhere, didn't walk around at night, all that stuff. If you read the case files, it's very vague. You know, the Warners were demonologists, but she was a psychic. And so a lot of what you see Hollywood does, they don't want to just have you sitting there and say, well, they thought this. I recently saw the recent Conjuring, and they made a part about a demon went in, the devil made me do it or something, and grabbed his heart. That's what gave him a heart condition. Ed Warner was heavy. He had high cholesterol. He probably had diabetes. I don't know for sure, but I do know he had a heart condition. It probably was a byproduct of his health, not a demon grabbing his heart. He was an older man who was overweight. And that's what I try to do. I try to logically explain things. So with the dolls, I put this out on our Facebook page, and I said, please send me anything you want. And I know how to build a lot of the, I'll build my own Rem Pod, and it'll cost me $15. This thing costs you $150. So I said, send me haunted dolls, and I'll take them. I don't think they're really haunted. I think that people just buy creepy dolls and stuff. So some of the ones that they sent me, this was from California. And again, I don't know why people would buy this or do anything like that. Let me get a battery for it. So I built a Rem Pod in it, and I actually put it up on Facebook live one night. And so if a Rem Pod goes off, it emits an EMF field. I don't know if you could see him. So if a Rem Pod, if something's near him, his eyes would light up and the sound would go off. So literally what I was doing as an experiment, he was claimed to be haunted, came from California. The father sent it to me. He liked Bozo. He bought it as a collector's item. When he found it, he said he put it in his house. Weird stuff started happening. I've had this doll for 5 years now. My wife used to make me put it in the garage, but it's in my house now, and nothing happens. Nothing's ever happened. I'm not stuck to the ceiling in the morning, but he was one of them. So I said, great, send it to me and I'll send you pictures. I literally, one night I put it up, I put a live stream video of all the haunted dolls I had and said, let's see if something happens. People were watching it, nothing ever happened. Another one I received was, well, this was this was just a tribute to John Zappas. I have a Rem Pod in this. I don't have the battery in it right now, but this is what the real Annabelle looked like. Now, when people say, well, the real one now is in the case, I said, yes. And they go, you can't go near it. It's bound and blessed. I said, okay, but why is it on the road now? It goes on tour. If there's a demon attached to it, wouldn't you think chances are it might get out? So I try to logically explain things. So when someone goes to me, this doll's haunted, it's scaring my daughter. I say, well, I don't know if the doll's haunted because, again, if there's something all powerful as a demon, a negative entity, a spirit, why would it go in an inanimate object? What could it do? All right, I could see like if it wants to possess the kid, if you go into a doll, but more, if you notice, all these dolls have in common, they're creepy. And then the other one well, this one, again, 1960s. Person sent it to me. Now this thing is 3 foot tall. And I forget the story behind it, but anyway, a woman had it. It was either one of her relatives, and her kids were afraid of it. Well, I would be afraid of this too. But again, I put the Rem Pod in it. If spirit comes near it, it would go off. I've had this thing lit. I've had this one for 6 years. I've had it lit. Nothing's ever happened. And I put it on continuously at night to show, and I'll put it up. The people that sent me this stuff, I actually filmed it for them and said, look, I got nights and nights and nights. Nothing ever happened. I think it's psychological that these things are scary. Here's another one. This was a Mitch Mahoney doll said to me. And what I want to let you know is I don't buy these. Like there's a few, when I started trying to explain this, other paranormal groups because we're like, wow, he's got $100. We need to do that. So there's these dolls all over eBay that a psychic will give you a backstory to and tell you to buy for $300. Never, ever, ever do it. It's a ripoff. So what I try to do is debunk a lot or explain a lot. But I have had personal experiences without a doubt. I can tell you I was on a case where when I was with my brother and his group, I left and I was on my own for a year. I actually went investigating by myself because I wanted to experience what the clients were experiencing. I wanted that vulnerability. So I went on a case and the grandmother was in hospice. She stayed in the master bedroom. The boy was in the next bedroom. The parents gave up their bedroom, but they had another spirit bedroom that they stayed in because they want their mother to have the comfort. And unfortunately, of course, she was in hospice at the house. She passed away. So they said to me that their son heard the grandmother and heard noises. I said, okay, he was 10 years old. I went over there. We did investigations. And I did 5 investigations on 5 different nights by myself. They actually let me stay there overnight, which in residential homes, what you see that overnight stuff doesn't really happen. People will tell you, be there when I'm awake. And you'll take different floors. They'll maybe go out because there's a whole slew of things from personal items. I can't go in your house and sit in your house when you got jewelry boxes. You don't know me, so you have to sign a waiver and then you have to check all your stuff beforehand. And if you can, put it somewhere or have one person there. But that they don't show you that on TV, that's what has to happen. So anyway, I'm on this case and nothing happens. So what I said to them was, I personally believe the 10-year-old kid was just scared because grandma died in the room next to him. And I said, listen, I went into the kid and I said, listen, I'm going to give you my card. And I live 2 towns away from you. I can drive over here anytime if you need me. I said, just, you can call me or your mom and dad could call me. And they said, okay. So like 2 months go by, I just drove over there and I said, how's everything going? I wanted to see him to reassure him that there's nothing there. And nothing. All of a sudden one day, like 9:30 on a Sunday night, I get a call. He's freaking out. He's in his room. We told him, he was playing his games. We told him, shut your games off soon. He said he hears noises. I said, I just think he's playing those video games. A lot of them are scary. I think he has an overactive mind. I'm going to come over and I'm going to show him. What I'll do is I'll come in the house, I'll turn out the lights and I'll show him there's nothing to be afraid of. So I did go over there and I said, listen, I'm the guy that looks for these things, the spooky things. And he was, yeah, I know. And he was this cool kid, not dumb, wasn't talking down to him or anything. He was smart. I said, well, let's do this just to reassure you. I said, let me turn off the lights in your room. You stay here with me. And I'll tell you what, I'll go in your closet and close the door. No one wants to do that. He said, you would do that? I said, nothing to be afraid of. Do it. Wait 5 minutes. And then I knocked and said, could I come out? He's like, sure. And he jokingly said, well, how do I know it's you? And I opened the door and said, yes, it is. Same thing when he looked under his bed. We're done. I'm sitting in his room. I said, see, there's nothing to worry about. I sit in his room. I lean against the wall. And we're talking for a minute. And I hear someone bang on the wall from the other room. I quickly get up. I go in the other room. There's no one there. I go back in. He goes, see, that's what I'm. And he was shaking. I said, well, if it is your grandmother, she's just trying to let you know that she's still here and that she loves you. And all you have to do with her is tell her, you're scaring me. Can you do it some other way? But that's one of those stories to where, one of my cases to where I told you, if I never went back that last time, I'd say that place isn't haunted. So I think we're running out of time, and I don't know if people have questions.